I'm Jennifer Deswanner with Borshoff, and I am here today with two friends, Ebony Chappel and Sarah Evans, who are both going to talk to us about a new Indianapolis place that is not new, but it turns out that for a lot of us, it is something we did not know enough about, and I'm really excited about it to the point that I'm going to try to figure out how are we going to focus on some certain subjects, because I feel like I could just go in 1,000 different directions. But this place that we're going to talk about is Belmont Beach, and it was once a segregated, blacks-only, really swimming area on the White River, and it has a lot of interesting and very challenging history, and is being rejuvenated and reimagined and going in a whole new direction. So we're excited to hear more about it and what's being done with this amazing community landmark. And we thank you so much for being with us, because I know just enough about it, and the more I read, the more interested I become, and the more I'm thinking, oh my goodness, let's learn more about it. How did you each get involved in this project?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for having us, first of all. I got involved in the Friends of Belmont Beach through one of my friends, Ted Hardy, who serves as the president of the Friends of Belmont Beach. And we went to high school together. We were both products of Hallville, very proud products of Hallville. Ted's family has been in Hallville for over 4 generations. Wow. Mine is 3 generations deep in that neighborhood. That's where I grew up. And we went to Wayne Township schools. You know, we were bused out there at that time, and we just kept in touch. Ted had been involved in parks already because he took, ownership pretty much of the park in his neighborhood that had become kind of abandoned at a point in time. So that got him interested in parks. And the way that I understand the story is that there was an investment made to explore a pilot project along the White River, and Sarah probably has much more information on this than I do, but some funding became available to do a pilot project along White River to see what some sort of public community activation could look like there. And Ted got pulled in as a community stakeholder, and he called me and he asked, could you come and do some communications work for us? We need to get the word out about this thing. And I said, okay, because he knew I'd done that. I worked at the Recorder for 4.5 years and did radio and did all different sorts of grassroots PR and communications work in the community. So I jumped in thinking that I'm just going to do that. My Virgo in nature, eldest daughter, nature rose up, and I was like,
we're all representing.
Type A, type A. Yep. And realized that there were other ways that I could contribute. So fast forward, I became the volunteer executive director. We formed a board. Ted became president of the board. And we're in our 3rd year of programming at Belmont Beach. We recently became a nonprofit organization under the Friends of Belmont Beach, so modeling ourselves after other Friends of Parks groups. And then we started a vision planning process this year in concert with V3 and some other great folks. So that's how I got pulled in.
That is awesome. Yes, be careful what you raise your hand for, because then you're like,
Absolutely.
Oh, now I'm in charge. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, yes. Life changed forever.
We'll have a group therapy conversation on that also. So, Sarah, how you got involved?
We got involved last fall. Tourism Tomorrow through Visit Indy, they put out a call for, qualifications on this project that they had a sort of framework in mind of what they wanted to do. And we got asked to be involved by Site Design Group. They're a Chicago-based landscape architecture firm. We've done work with them over the years. And I think really the reason that they reached out to us was through our work that we've done along the White River. So we've done a couple different projects along the White River. And one of those in particular was Riverside Adventure Park, which is the transformation of the former golf course into this nature park for everyone. It also has a history of segregation and exclusiveness. And so through that process, we employed a different type of engagement strategy where we partnered with the neighborhood organizations to lead us in that effort. And we're doing the important job of listening. So it's a little different way of doing things. And that was being, that type of engagement strategy was also being modeled in this project. And so I think that's, just our experience in working in these water environments, doing engagement in a different way. Those were a lot of the reasons that I think we were involved in the project. And Ted actually too was involved in Riverside Adventure Park project. So he was bringing that voice too from the Hallville neighborhood, and so that was another connection.
Things that blow my mind, that Riverside Park is bigger than Central Park in New York City. Just learned that from Indy Parks and was like, wait, what? And how we have these amazing gems that we don't always know about, and not all of them, as you've both indicated, have been treated like gems. They weren't. It was either underinvested or lots of different things there. Talk about that community engagement, if you will. How have you done it? What does it mean to have community engagement? Because we know that can be a spectrum. It can be everything from just telling people, here's what's coming. We've been involved in some of those. In other words, when this large infrastructure project is going to come through, it's going to come through, and we're telling people. You were asking people. What's that look like to have community asked and involved?
Absolutely. So Sarah touched on it a little bit earlier, but the work that was done at Riverside Adventure Park, just developing the community rapport and learning from them what they wanted to see happen. I wasn't directly involved, but I was able to see a lot of that because everywhere I went, the people I knew that lived in that area were socializing that concept that, this park is coming, we're so excited, all of this. So I could tell that they were deeply engaged. With Belmont Beach, I have to owe a great deal to Brad Bobian for really being a great partner with Visit Indy and to help champion the fact that this needed to be baked in from the very beginning of our process. So that made things so much easier because then we didn't have to prove or fight or, really be combative with anyone about why this was important and why we needed to take a significant amount of time to do it. So we started our engagement process really early, even in the decision of picking what design firm we were going to go with. There were community stakeholders involved in that conversation and helping me read through responses to the RFQ. There was a lot that had to happen. So started really early with that. And then moving into baking in the engagement into our programming at Belmont Beach. So that's been really impactful because we wanted to go where people already are. We still do some of the traditional things, like there are meetings that take place. So we go to Hallville Strong Neighborhood Association and Near West and really anywhere else in the immediate area, especially to talk about what it is that we're doing, get feedback from people. So there's a survey. There's also face-to-face conversation taking place and finding ways to quantify that so that it can be looked at later, because we know we have to include that part, the data and all that stuff. There are people that really need it to be in black and white for them, so finding a way to quantify. I talked to my neighbor about this and this is what they had to say. So it's really baked into our entire process. So we're toward the midway point of our engagement right now. And it's a lot of taking what we've heard and kind of distilling it down a little bit further. Okay, we heard you want, these are the preferences that have come up most frequently in terms of the programming you would want to see, in terms of the design and the amenities of the space. So just starting to drill down a little bit more. But it's been amazing what we've been hearing from people so far.
And you did a pop-up, a something, is that correct?
We did.
And was that community driven? And what was in it? How'd it go? What'd you learn?
Yeah. So that part was community driven. So from the beginning, all of the people involved in Belmont Beach, at first we were calling ourselves Belmont Beach Project and still do in some ways. But now moving into the Friends of Belmont Beach, now that we've formalized into this organization. But everybody it was volunteer based. So from building out the space and the amenities we have there. Robert Negron from Indy Convergence and Indy Convergence in general, River Force One, which is another organization that's come up that works on the west side, has been deeply involved. a lot of the people that are involved in the project live on the west side, are products of Hawville themselves.
That's
so
awesome.
It's been, you know, community driven from the very beginning.
That's so cool. You use the word convergence, and Sarah and I were talking about a little bit before, as a landscape architect, that this is a literal convergence where these waterways come together, and then community convergence, which is the even more important. But if you could like talk about the physical, what this place is like, and then how we get to the people actually using it.
Well, I mean, so where Belmont Beach sits along the White River, it's just upstream from where Fall Creek comes into the White River. And so it's this literal convergence of these two waterways, which is, you know, a rich, abundant area of life. And, you know, we see too, like, how can we convey those kinds of themes through what is produced in the project? And, you know, speaking to what Ebony was talking about, you know, there's already this convergence of all of these people happening here already, even before there was this request for qualifications, right? The folks were utilizing the park space already. And so I think that's what makes using this type of an approach so important, is because where we as the designers are taking our cues from the neighborhood and the folks who actually know the site the best, and then just applying our technical expertise on top of, you know, okay, how can we illustrate that into the landforms, or what can we, you know, what are we limited by in terms of permitting because we're on a river or whatever. You know, I think so often, and I've shared this, you know, with Denise before, is so often as designers, we have come into communities and said, we know what's best, this is what you need. And that hasn't always worked very well because we don't know what's always needed in an area. We're not from there. So, you know, I feel our job or our role is really to listen first to what the vision is from folks. And that makes for a much more exciting, successful project in the end, something that's going to be sustainable in the long run. And people can see how, you know, their input has had an impact in that project. And then they take their kids back and, you know, see, this is what we did. And, you know, it's got that longevity to it. I think that's so important. And then, quite frankly, utilizing a strategy like this, you're actually using design dollars to fund neighborhood groups, to fund artists from the neighborhood, you know, food vendors. You know, it's the party part of public engagement that I think is so fun. But it's having economic benefits to the neighborhood, which is, I mean, that's important. So I think, you know, that's why part of the success of this strategy goes to that.
So often improvements, have been about, you know, we'll put this here and you'll love it versus, and it seems so often we've measured things on what was built there, what was put there, what was, rather than, you know, just even the process. If we maybe go back to that word convergence, it seems like just the process itself has value. You know, we need this conversation. Now, we need results as well. It can't be just conversation and just talk. But what's that looked like to have, you know, convergence as you've seen it, and community and things that you've learned along the way? Maybe even what surprised you as part of that. Yeah. You grew up there, so you've known it. Your family's known it forever, but clearly you're seeing it in a whole new light now, different eyes.
Absolutely, in a whole new light. So even Belmont Beach in general, so learning about that story, because growing up, I had never heard that story. And I lived on a side of Hawville that was a little bit further away from the water, you know, for most of the time that I was there. But that was a story I never heard of. So when I first learned of it, I was shocked. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, of course I knew Indianapolis, like most places in the country, was segregated for an extremely long time. And, you know, depending on who you ask, still is to a certain extent. So that was fascinating to me. It was also, you know, really heart-wrenching when you thought about some of the things that came along with Black people having to find a way out of no way, but, you know, not necessarily having all of the safety and supports that they needed to be able to enjoy the space.
Yeah.
But then thinking about like the joy and the resilience and those type of things as well has really informed a lot of the work that we've done. What it's looked like in terms of this specific part of the process is intentionality, slowing down, taking time to think through things, thinking even deeper, like who are we missing, from the conversation. Like even while we're sitting here right now, I thought about 2 other engagement things that I'm going to try to shove in somewhere because I really think that they need to happen to make sure that we've been able to reach other people and get their thoughts on what we're doing. Some of the things that have not necessarily surprised me because I know it's a part of it, but sometimes there are pushback. You could think that you've done everything and, and even thinking that is a little problematic because it's like, did you really?
Right.
You're only one person or you're only 10 people.
Right.
And you only have so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
So no, you didn't do everything. But remembering that there are always going to be barriers and hurdles and things that you have to work through. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be friction. And it's a part of the process as well. And remembering that that's okay has been really, really important. And knowing that at the end of the day, our hearts are, in the right place. We desire to do something great for the community. And that's what we intend to do. And that'll be our guiding light moving forward.
That's awesome. There's such a fascinating history with this area. Same, I did not grow up there. Coming here later and thinking you kind of know an area of the city a little bit. So this was a time when the river was contaminated, which we'll get to too, because it still is. And that's so interesting too, because here we say words like beach and we talk about river and convergence of waterways, but we're really still not encouraged to get into that water.
No.
And that was true in the early 1900s when this came about. And obviously there have been people on this land for thousands of years before it as well. And as we look at where our city, our community was at that time, then the river was contaminated. So even though we're a river city, people are being told, for all the reasons of industry and farming and everything else that we shouldn't get in it. And so the city built, I understand, like 19 swimming pools around the city. That seems like a great answer until you learn that only one of them was permitted for African Americans in it. And over at Douglas Park, which, that part of the city, more east side, and would have been great for people who lived right there. And I'm sure, that was chosen for a reason. At the same time, here in Hawville, I think what I read was 5 miles away. It feels like about 100 miles away when you think about it from people who are not, like, your car is not easily accessible. There is no public transportation. You are saying a gazillion miles over there. There's a pool that you're welcome to be in. Yeah. And here you have this waterway. So people start using it either, as you've said, I want to go back to the word resilience because I think it's such a great word. And also, it's been a lot of my journey of learning on a lot of this has been a resilience of people who were given almost nothing and actually barriers put in the way of their growth and yet found a way, as you said. And so they started using it. But even in this new era, that river is not something we say, you should go swim in it. Yeah. It's got, issues with that there. And yet we can turn it into a gem is what I'm hearing too. So that resilience is still there, but it's almost a physical resilience of the area and the land. And is the White River going to get cleaned up? Because I know there's this is like a big project that has a lot more players than the Belmont Beach area. But maybe Sarah, if you talk for a second too, as landscape architect and infrastructure in terms of the water and what that's going to do and how this project.
The White River, like a lot of industrial cities, has been used for dumping grounds, not only industrial waste, but we had a combined sewer system here in Indianapolis, which is where the stormwater and your sewer water are combined. at times that gets to capacity and you have to dump that raw sewage into the river. So Citizens Energy Group has been doing a great job of cleaning that up, cleaning up all of these outfall areas. And this section of the river, that work has been completed. So they're still doing some work in other contributing waterways of the city, but I think that's supposed to be completed in 2025. So there is work that is being done to clean up the river, make it safe. You know, we also have a Lowhead Dam, though, right there at Belmont Beach. And that has been, you know, these dams are put in place along a river to hold up water a lot of times for drinking supply. That dam collapsed back in 2018. And Citizens Energy Group constructed what's called a rock ramp upstream up in Riverside Park to hold the river water where they needed it to be. But there's still the issue of that dam there that has collapsed that is still, it's a element that we need to make sure that we're mindful that, you know, don't get in the river at this point because it's still a barrier. You know, it's been really interesting, too, to think about not only that element, but just the river in terms of how it has been a barrier, you know, and makes it more difficult to connect across it. So we're looking at, you know, the bridge crossings at 16th Street and 10th Street and how they can serve as gateways to and from neighborhoods, but also to the river. Because at the end of the day, we want to make this a comfortable, a safe place for folks to visit. You know, and so we've got these themes of connectivity and resiliency, and a lot of times you think of environmental issues when you think of resiliency. But, you know, like to Ebony's point earlier, there's the people resiliency there too. And we want to make sure that that comes out because, you know, not only, remind me of the name of the gentleman who trucked in loads of sand.
That is Goosey Lee.
Yes.
Harry Goosey is what he went by, Lee.
Yeah. So not only do we have the story of Goosey Lee and saying, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to make something.
In what era? When did he do that? What did he do?
This was in the 1900s when Belmont Beach started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so originally they wanted to purchase the land where Municipal Gardens is right now. But we're told if you know, sell it to them, we will condemn it. Meaning, like, we do not want Black people to have access to it. But they can go a little further downstream where the water is a little worse and they can have that. But yeah, he was a Black businessman, civic leader in his own way, and brought sand to build the beach.
No kidding.
So we have that.
And this is like
story.
1916 or whatever, somewhere in that
It was,
early.
it started in the
early
1930s. Yeah.
So we've got that story of resiliency, but then also too, I mean, what Friends of Belmont Beach has been doing is also a story of resiliency. Like they've been putting on these pop-up performances and activating this site that was really not being utilized, and to make it like a community destination, something really positive, something that exhibits joy in the community. And you know, we want to make sure that all of that good stuff that's already happening there doesn't get lost, doesn't, you know, become something different. And again, that's why we have to listen to what they're saying. This is what we want. This is what we need. And then implement that into more permanent. And, you know, we're also looking at how to better connect Belmont Beach with Reverend Moselle Sanders Park, which is an indie park that's, you know, there's been plans, but nothing has really moved forward there. So Indie Parks is really focusing on how to connect these two spaces and the River Greenway into something that can really celebrate, you know, Reverend Moselle Sanders was a prominent African-American pastor in the community. You know, celebrate like all of this great stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So Riverside, so there's Riverside Park, there's Moselle Sanders Park. Belmont Beach is not a park in itself, or it
is a park.
It
is not a part of the Indie Parks system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is a park. And then the Greenway that Sarah was referring to is a stretch of land that goes along the White River over on the side that we're on with Belmont Beach. and it's beautiful. There are things there that people wouldn't even imagine. Coach Harger, who's on our board and a part of our team, takes us on nature walks along the nature trail. So every second Saturday of the month through October, he takes us on nature walks.
Can anybody go?
Anybody can come.
Oh, cool.
It's open to the public.
Okay.
We start in the morning at 10 a.m. and it is amazing the stuff that he shows us. He's like, oh, there's this bird and that bird. And if you're into, you're the ornithological person,
starting in the pandemic,
spots.
I became one. Yeah, you know those people when you're like, I'm
Yeah.
working in my back porch going, have these animals always been here? I just was, you know.
some of them came
not
back,
paying attention.
right,
Yes,
you know.
right. Thank you. That's right.
Some of them came back when we went in
But
the
he
house.
knows what he's
But
looking at, different
he
from me.
does.
So he's like,
Yeah.
pointing
So
out.
he points all these beautiful things out to us, and it's amazing. Even with the greenery and things like, there was a lot of invasives, but there's a lot of things out there too that could potentially be foraged as the land continues to heal itself, and we continue to do our part as good stewards of it. You know, it could really be something.
What you're both making me think too is that it's like the river. Maybe we don't have to go in it, and that doesn't need to be my goal or thinking.
People want to.
Sure,
People want to.
but I'm also thinking
Yeah.
like you just want to be by it. I mean, you just want to be near it, and you want. I
Yeah.
mean, as we've all talked about with the canal and everything else, like I just want a place to eat near it that you get to see it. And a lot of us, we are fortunate with a lot of sort of waters in our fairly landlocked city, but a lot of us don't live on the water. But you always want to. We all, as humans, seems like we always
That's a
always want to
natural
move
desire.
toward it. So we want to eat near it. We want to walk on it. We want to do the.
We want to hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at like civilization and where communities pop
Yeah.
up, it's always on. Because not only can we use it for our food and our sustenance that way, but there is this natural human desire to congregate near water, and so it's like, let's celebrate that great natural resource that we have. And to Ebony's point, I don't think a lot of people realize that you can get this great natural experience in the city, in a very urban.
Exactly.
We started
Amazing.
referring to urban oasis. We
Yeah.
start referring to it as that.
That's
We somehow separate civilization and urban environments from nature, and it's like no, they can coexist, and that's even better in some ways because you don't have to travel a far distance to get there.
I am
right?
a city person. I'm like, give me but I still want the trees, and you still want the river, and you still want and to be able to. We've had a river. But we just have not taken enough advantage, especially in more recent, and I know a lot of cities, they put it was all about transportation, you put the warehousing and you put the things like that. And now to find areas of these places where we could actually access it, do something, and it's both the serious and the fun. Talk about the fun part of this in terms of either what people are thinking they'd like to do there, have done there, would like to do there, and infrastructure improvements can be very serious, but they could also be really fun, enjoyable.
It could be really fun. So in terms of things that people want to see, we've talked so much about the river, so I'll stay in that vein. People want to be on the water.
Okay.
People want to be on the water.
In what way? Boats or
So boats, access to other watercraft.
Okay.
I have not weighed in because I'm trying to stay neutral as more of a facilitator and things, but I went on a float a couple of summers ago further up north on the river with my sister and her sister, and it was beautiful, and I'm like, I can't wait until this is something that we can do, closer to where we are. We did a float with the Friends of White River over at the Riverside Rock Ramp last year. So we put in back there, and then you can take out right before you get to the dam. Actually, it's a further away, but you take out of the river before you get to the collapsed Emmericksville Dam. And there were people on the float with us that had never done that before, and they're like, oh my God, I see the city in a whole different way.
It is. It's like you're in a completely different place.
Completely different place. So stuff like that. Frank's Livery is a water sports facility that has opened up. So they're located at the Parks Alliance on the river in a different area. So
and that's in Riverside Park? Is that where Parks Alliance is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So there's that going on. But people want to be able to do that. People love the fact that we do a lot of performance things outdoors. So they still want to see that. They like things that involve being together. Everything that I see people gravitate toward is, we want to do this together. So having fields that are multi-purpose. People are being so thoughtful too about their other neighbors. They're like, yeah, well, I could see we could use this for a million different things, so I'm gonna pick that thing.
Cool.
Yeah, so that there's something for everybody, because Hawville and Riverside, it's becoming very diverse.
Yeah.
Even more as the years go on. So being able to have things that different people can.
That Central State development has been like mind blowing to me, just in terms of what it was, and now seeing
it has been mind blowing for a lot of different reasons to me. Being a person that grew up on the West Side and was, that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I'll save us that.
Yes, there's fascinating, but that element of the fun, but also the where people what people will actually use too, because sometimes there's community engagement. People say they think they'll use those, but to really know that there are already like kids sports teams or whatever it happens to be who could already benefit from, like you'll watch it being used. And the temporary seems like that was part of it too, kind of testing to see.
It was testing, because there was a lot of groundwork that went into that, because it was supposed to launch before the world shut down. And it didn't. So there was, some adjustment that needed to take place. But there was a lot of surveying and conversations that went into, what do you want to see here, that informed the decisions that were made about what's there right now. And what's there right now has even morphed, because at one point in time we had a basketball court. A storm came and took our basketball court away. So then we had a sandy area that was used for cornhole and horseshoes and whatever else the kids wanted to do in that sandy area. Then it became the home for our raised bed gardens. So that's what it is right now. So even that, things have morphed over time, and we've added stuff. Ted is he's a bit of a gamer, so he'll say it's like The Sims.
Yeah.
So we'll have these moments where we'll just set stuff out there and then just see. So we put grills, like park grills out there. We're like, we're just going to put them there and see what happens. A couple days later, people are cooking on the grills. Awesome. We add park benches. A couple days later, people are, because there's a park bench that faces the water.
Yeah.
So people are hanging out at the park bench. People are having lunch with their family and doing, picnics on the weekend, whatever it is that they want to do. Coming to take photos. The photographers have really just taken it and made it a whole different thing.
That's
There's
so cool.
Somebody shot a music video and Ted sent it to me. He was like, yeah, this was at Belmont. And whatever they did to the video, it looks like they were in Florida. I was like, what is this? And it was just the angle, and like they got the perfect
The
lighting,
lighting.
like the golden hour lighting. And I was like, what is? So people, that whole concept of build it and they will come.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what movie that was from. It was the baseball movie.
Yeah, Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Yes, you're doing Beach of Dreams.
Beach of Dreams.
Right.
Yeah. So
Funding. How'd you get money to this point to do those kind of things? Who pays for a grill, a bench, a this, a that, the study, and obviously to engage Sarah's firm and others like that takes funding. And what's funding look like for bringing this to more permanence?
Yep. So funding has been very interesting. We started out with a really small budget. I mean, small in terms of what other parks have to work with, but when funds, and this is, a little bit of a soapbox moment for me because I've witnessed this multiple times, but when organizations, philanthropic, whoever, when you invest in the community and allow them the space to do things without so much red tape and bureaucracy and all this stuff, you will be amazed at the things that happen. Yeah. Because especially when you're working with people that are multipliers and know how to take things and multiply, exponentially, you will be amazed at the things that happen. And that doesn't mean don't be generous with your investment, but just understand that whatever you give, if you give the space and the freedom and there's trust built, you'll be amazed at what happens. So we started out with a pretty small budget. Year 1 going into year 2, it was a little hectic. So we were self-funded in the beginning, and then we got more money that came in. And with self-funded meaning, you know, members of the team spending money to do things and like, we'll get the money back later.
Yeah. Wow.
Because that's how committed we were after year 1, because it was only supposed to be a temporary thing from April to October that 1 year. That was literally it.
6 months, good.
Yeah. Wow. It was not intended to go beyond April of 2020. That would have been 2021. October, excuse me, of 2021. But we came together and we were like, okay, we got something. What do you guys want to do? Let's, you know, discuss what that looks like. But then, you know, we started to learn more about funding. I took one grant writing class in college as an elective because it was one of the ones that was offered online with no intention of I'm going to ever write a grant for anything. Yeah. Funny.
But you are a journalist and a great writer, so that can
I appreciate that.
Well.
Transferable skills.
Yes, transferable.
Yeah, transferable skills.
For
so,
sure.
yeah, we've learned a lot about that and have been very, you know, we've been well supported. So we've had funding from the Lilly Endowment. We, you know, have been funded by so many great entities in the community, both larger groups and smaller groups. We have 100% board giving, which we make very accessible. Nice. We did $23 for 2023. That was the campaign, and we used that for our Giving Tuesday. And we got so much support from the community as well, because it goes to that thought of so many people have the opportunity to be philanthropic if they would just be asked, and be asked at a scale that is reasonable.
Right.
So we've had extremely good support from the community as well, which is what I think is so rich. I stole that from Barack Obama because he would do at his campaigns, you know, he built up that micro giving. Yeah. So we borrowed that, and that's something that we'll keep on forever. So thinking about the future, we certainly want the Friends of to have an endowment so that it is supported from now until whenever. Because a lot of times, you know, with community things, it falls apart because of that. There's no sustainability. Things go in and out of vogue depending on what the taste is of the people that have money at the time. So being able to set something up that, you know, can support us ongoing is one of our big goals right now.
So that funding, Sarah, you're wrapping a plan, or what's the involvement look like for the architecture piece of this?
So the end goal, you know, we're doing engagement throughout the process. As Ebony said, we're kind of at that halfway point right now. After we, you know, we're kind of testing ideas right now. Then we start to lay that out into, okay, this is the vision for these spaces. These are the recommendations that have come out of the process. And then we assign costs to them because that's really important. Building a toolkit that has realistic costs that look at, okay, we're not going to be doing all of this at one time. So we need to plan for, you know, phased implementation over many years of time period. That's really helpful then, because it provides folks like Friends of Belmont Beach, the city, Visit Indy, a realistic plan that then they can go after for funding, right? I mean, and so many times we've seen instances of philanthropic organizations. They've got the money. They're just looking for people with plans.
Right.
And when you have those
shovel
plans,
ready, as they say, get it ready. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have those plans laid out, you say, okay, we have a great idea.
Yes.
Here it is.
Yes.
Help us make this a reality.
And honestly, when somebody drives by it at some point and just goes, oh my God, I want to be a part of this. I want to do something. And if somebody's of means, have a way to. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
so
I mean, so many of the philanthropic organizations are also looking at, okay, well, what's been the involvement been like? This is a great idea, but how have you talked to the community about this? How involved are they? And again, that goes back to the strategy that's being implemented through this project. Yeah, we have. This idea came from them, and they've been part of the funding process.
And here are
too.
great photos of like people actually using it. And
tons of photos.
Yeah.
So as we close, Ebony, what's one thing you wish like you would like the community to do or to know or to anything that any of us could, get involved or support in some way?
Yeah, so I would say come and visit us at Belmont Beach.
Do a walk at 10 a.m. on a Saturday,
Yes,
maybe,
on
or
a
something else.
Saturday, or every last Friday we do outdoor movie nights. Those are really beautiful. So we have all sorts of different programming going on. So if you go to Belmont Beach Project, we're on Facebook and Instagram. You can also check out our website, belmontbeachnd.org, to find out more about the programming we have going on for the Hawville Riverfront Vision Plan. My Hawville Parks actually it's HawvilleRiverfront.com.
HawvilleRiverfront.com.
Yes.
Belmont Beach.
Yeah, and we're on.
I Googled and found some things, so you
all
can
the
get all
things.
that. I
Yes.
love it.
Yes. And then Hawville Parks on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the vision plan and everything that's going on with that. But yeah, just get engaged, involved with us. If you have questions or you have comments about what's going on, we would love to hear that feedback as well. So,
Thank you. I could keep asking questions all day. We could keep talking all day. In fact, if you want to stay, let's do that. But really, thank you for your time today, both of you, because it's fascinating. And it's just so, it's both not new and new. You're at a really cool point in the project. You know a lot and you've seen some vision, and yet so much more to be realized. It's super
It's like one of those pinch
exciting.
me, I can't believe I get to be a part of this.
Yeah.
literally, the feeling is mutual.
That is so cool, really. You're both a gift to it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for listening in. If you have ideas for an upcoming episode, please tell us, because these ShoffChats just kind of come about. I happened to be in a conversation where I heard about this and said, okay, what? I want to know more about that. So, and we have, you can subscribe on YouTube channel or ShoffChats and at borshoff.biz and at ShoffChats and your favorite podcast platform. We're available. So thank you all, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And she was telling me